Imagine a quiet suburban neighborhood where everything seems picture perfect until a delivery man faces blatant harassment from a racist homeowner. Just when things spiral out of control, an unexpected hero steps in. What happens next will leave you speechless, as Snoop Dogg turns this act of injustice into a moment of unforgettable karma. Stay tuned to see how a simple delivery becomes a powerful lesson in respect and humanity. The quiet suburban neighborhood of Brookhaven basked under the warm afternoon sun. Rows of immaculate houses lined the streets, each boasting manicured lawns, pristine driveways, and carefully curated flower beds. The air was still, carrying the faint hum of lawnmowers and distant laughter of children playing in backyards. In this picture-perfect setting stood Eugene's house, a symbol of affluence with its towering columns and freshly painted shutters. Everything about it screamed control and precision, much like Eugene himself, a man known for his sharp tongue and icy demeanor. His neighbors often avoided him, wary of his penchant for condescending remarks and rigid expectations. A white delivery van pulled up outside Eugene's house, disrupting the stillness. Out stepped Daryl, a young delivery driver in his early 30s, dressed in a neatly pressed uniform despite the long day's heat. Beads of sweat formed on his brow as he carefully retrieved a medium-sized package from the van. Daryl glanced at the address on the package to double-check before heading up the pristine driveway. He moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who took pride in his work, despite the challenging nature of his job. Unbeknownst to Eugene, who was watching from behind his curtained window, another car had parked a few houses away. Inside sat Snoop Dogg, taking a quick detour from a long drive. His black SUV gleamed in the sunlight as he leaned back, sipping a bottle of water and scrolling through his phone. Snoop's casual presence seemed at odds with the tension brewing at Eugene's front door. While Daryl approached, unaware of the confrontation to come, Snoop's sharp instincts picked up on the subtle unease in the air. What began as an ordinary delivery was about to turn into an unforgettable moment of justice. Daryl climbed the porch steps with careful precision, the package cradled securely in his hands. He knocked on the door and stepped back, waiting patiently. Moments later, the door swung open, revealing Eugene, a man in his 50s with a permanent scowl etched into his face. Dressed in a crisp polo shirt tucked into beige slacks, Eugene scrutinized Daryl with narrowed eyes before even greeting him. "What took you so long?" Eugene snapped, his tone sharp and dismissive. "This package should have been here an hour ago." Daryl offered a polite smile, keeping his voice steady. "I apologize for the delay, sir. There was some traffic on the main road." Eugene scoffed, folding his arms across his chest. "Traffic?" Typical excuse. "Do you people ever take responsibility for anything?" Daryl flinched slightly but remained composed. "Here's your package, sir. Please have a great day." He extended the box toward Eugene, hoping to defuse the situation, but Eugene wasn't done. "Wait a minute," he said, glancing over Daryl's shoulder at the van parked on his pristine driveway. "Did you seriously park there? Do you know how much I pay to keep my driveway spotless? Those tires better not leave marks." The accusation hung in the air, making Daryl shift uncomfortably. "I'll move the van right away," he replied, turning to head back. "Not so fast," Eugene barked, stepping out onto the porch. "What's in the package? Is it damaged? You delivery guys are always tossing things around like they're nothing." Daryl took a deep breath, trying to stay professional. "The package is in perfect condition, sir. If you'd like, you can inspect it before I leave." Behind them, a figure in a black SUV leaned forward, watching the scene unfold. Snoop Dogg removed his sunglasses, his expression turning serious. Eugene's voice grew louder. "I don't need to inspect it. I already know it's probably messed up, just like your attitude. You people always act like the world owes you something." Daryl froze, his grip tightening on the package. Snoop Dogg opened his car door and stepped out, his calm demeanor masking a rising anger as he approached the unfolding drama. Eugene's voice grew louder as he stepped closer to Daryl, his frustration boiling into something uglier. The once quiet neighborhood now seemed to amplify his condescending tone, each word cutting sharper than the last. "You think you can just waltz up here, ruin my lawn, and waste my time? You're lucky I don't call your boss right now and have you fired," Eugene sneered, pointing a finger in Daryl's face. Daryl's jaw clenched, but he maintained his composure. "Sir, I'm just here to deliver your package. If there's an issue, I can—" "Don't interrupt me!" Eugene snapped, his voice laced with venom. "This is the problem with you people. You don't respect boundaries, rules, or hard work." The words hit Daryl harder than the heat of the sun beating down on them. He took a step back, clutching the package as if it were his last shield of dignity. For a moment, he considered leaving the package on the porch and walking away, but his professionalism wouldn't let him. Nearby, Snoop Dogg leaned against his black SUV, now fully engrossed in the scene. His sharp eyes narrowed as Eugene's tirade escalated, and he began walking toward the confrontation, his casual stride masking the tension building within him. Eugene wasn't done. "You're all the same? Can't even do a simple job right? Look at those tire marks. Are you going to pay for the damage, or should I call the cops right now?" He reached for his phone dramatically, as if daring Daryl to challenge him. Daryl finally spoke, his voice firm but respectful. "With all due respect, sir, I've done nothing wrong. The package is delivered, and I'll move my van if that's what you want." But Eugene stepped closer, his face inches from Daryl's. "What I want," he spat, "is for people like you to stay out of neighborhoods like this. You don't belong here." That was the moment Snoop Dogg decided enough was enough. His calm, commanding voice cut through the heated exchange like a knife. "Yo, what's going on here?" Snoop asked, his tone steady but unmistakably authoritative. Both men turned, Eugene's face shifting from anger to shock as he recognized the towering figure approaching. Eugene stammered, momentarily caught off guard. "This has nothing to do with you," he managed, his bravado faltering. Snoop raised an eyebrow, glancing at Daryl and then back at Eugene. "Seems like it does now. I've been watching, and you're way out of line, man." Eugene's scowl returned. "I don't need some celebrity telling me how to handle my business." But Snoop wasn't backing down. "Your business? Harassing a guy for doing his job? Nah, that ain't flying today." The tension in the air thickened as the neighborhood began to take notice. People peeked through windows, and a few ventured outside to witness what was quickly becoming an unforgettable scene. Snoop Dogg took a step closer, his calm but commanding presence silencing the scene. Eugene straightened up, trying to maintain his air of superiority, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. He wasn't expecting to face someone like Snoop, a celebrity known for his confidence and sharp wit. "What's the deal here, man?" Snoop asked, his voice steady but edged with a seriousness that made the crowd stir. His gaze shifted from Eugene to Daryl, assessing the situation. "This guy's just trying to do his job, and you're out here making it a big deal." Eugene scoffed, regaining some of his bravado. "You don't understand. These delivery people don't respect property. Look at my driveway. And the package. Who knows if it's even in one piece?" Snoop smirked, tilting his head slightly. "You're tripping over a driveway? That's your excuse for acting like this?" He folded his arms, his casual stance not diminishing the authority in his tone. "Let me tell you something. That man's working hard just like everybody else. Show some respect." Daryl stood to the side, his emotions a mix of relief and awe. He'd never imagined someone like Snoop Dogg would step in for him. The crowd was growing, with neighbors murmuring among themselves. Phones appeared, cameras rolling, as Snoop continued to stand his ground. Eugene's face flushed. "This is my property, and I'll handle things how I see fit," he barked, though his voice wavered. You don't live here, so stay out of it. Snoop chuckled softly, but his eyes stayed sharp. Nah, man, I'm not staying out of anything. When I see someone getting disrespected, I speak up. And right now, you're the problem. The crowd murmured louder, emboldened by Snoop's words. One neighbor stepped forward, a middle-aged woman holding her phone. He's right, Eugene. You've been treating workers like this for years, and we're tired of it, she called out. Eugene glared at her, but the weight of the crowd's judgment was starting to crack his confidence. This is none of your business, he snapped. Snoop raised his hand, silencing the argument. Let's keep it real, he said, stepping closer to Eugene. You think your big house and your attitude give you the right to treat people like they're less than you? That's not how it works. Respect is earned, not taken. The tension in the air was palpable as Snoop turned to Daryl, his tone softening. You good, man? You don't gotta take this kind of nonsense from anyone. Daryl nodded, his voice steady for the first time. I'm good now. Thanks, Mr. Dogg. Snoop nodded, then turned back to Eugene. Now, you've got two choices. Apologize to this man and let him do his job, or keep acting like a fool and show everyone here who you really are. Eugene hesitated, his pride battling against the weight of public shame. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, and the flash of phone cameras captured his every move. Finally, with a deep scowl, he muttered, Fine. I'm sorry. Snoop raised an eyebrow. Say it like you mean it. Eugene's voice was louder this time, though dripping with resentment. I'm sorry. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers, the moment serving as a small victory for respect and decency. Snoop smiled and clapped Daryl on the back. Keep your head up, man. You've got nothing to prove to anyone. The tension began to ease, but the moment wasn't over. Snoop's actions had set something bigger in motion, and Eugene wasn't prepared for what would come next. The confrontation at Eugene's house quickly became the talk of the neighborhood. As Snoop Dogg stood confidently beside Daryl, the tension that had gripped the crowd shifted into something else. Admiration. People whispered to one another, many expressing frustration over Eugene's behavior that had gone unchecked for years. A neighbor named Linda, the middle-aged woman who had earlier spoken up, stepped forward again. Eugene's been like this for as long as I can remember, she said, her voice loud enough for the gathering to hear. He's always rude to delivery workers, landscapers, anyone he thinks isn't on his level. Another man, Carlos, nodded in agreement. Yeah, he called the cops on my teenage son last year because he thought he didn't belong in the neighborhood, just for riding his bike. Eugene stood on his porch, his face reddening as the crowd grew bolder in their criticism. I don't have to explain myself to any of you, he barked, but his voice lacked its earlier venom. Meanwhile, several people in the crowd had begun filming, and a young woman in her 20s called out, This is going viral for sure. Snoop Dogg taking down a racist in our neighborhood. Everyone's gonna see this. Snoop turned to the crowd, raising his hands for quiet. The murmurs died down as his calm but commanding voice filled the space. Listen up, he said. This ain't just about Eugene or what he said today. This is about how we treat each other, no matter what job we do or where we come from. He gestured toward Daryl, who stood quietly to the side. This man right here is working hard just trying to do his job. And instead of being grateful or showing respect, some folks think it's okay to tear him down. That's gotta stop. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, some shouting their agreement. Daryl looked around, overwhelmed by the support, but a small smile crept onto his face. For the first time, he felt truly seen and appreciated. One of the neighbors, a younger man named Jay, approached Daryl and offered a handshake. Man, I'm sorry you had to deal with that. People like Eugene don't speak for all of us. Daryl shook Jay's hand, nodding gratefully. Thanks, I appreciate that. As the crowd rallied around Daryl, Eugene tried to retreat into his house, but another neighbor stopped him. "You owe all of us an apology, Eugene," she called out, crossing her arms. "Your attitude has been a problem for years." Snoop turned back to Eugene, his tone firm but not hostile. "You've got a chance to make things right, man. Start by treating people better." Eugene hesitated, glaring at the crowd. His pride was clearly battling with his growing humiliation, but the pressure was too much. He muttered something under his breath, but the crowd wasn't letting him off the hook. "Louder!" someone yelled. Eugene finally raised his voice, though his tone was sour. "Fine. I'm sorry if I offended anyone." The crowd's applause was polite but restrained, sensing the insincerity in his words. Snoop shook his head slightly, but chose not to escalate further. Instead, he turned back to Daryl. "Let's get out of here, man. You've got more important things to do than listen to this nonsense." As Snoop and Daryl began walking back to the delivery van, the crowd dispersed, many of them still recording or sharing their videos online. Within minutes, those videos were being uploaded to social media, quickly gaining traction. One video, captioned, "Snoop Dogg defends delivery driver against racist homeowner," racked up thousands of views within hours. Comments poured in, with users praising Snoop's actions and condemning Eugene's behavior. "That's how you handle racism in real life," one commenter wrote. Another added, "Delivery drivers and workers deal with this kind of stuff every day. Glad someone finally called it out." As Snoop climbed back into his SUV, he looked at Daryl and smiled. "Keep doing your thing, man. Don't let people like that get you down." Daryl nodded, his confidence restored. "Thanks, Mr. Dogg. I'll remember this." As they parted ways, the videos of the encounter continued to spread, sparking conversations far beyond the quiet neighborhood. While Eugene sulked behind closed doors, the world was taking notice of the real lesson learned that day. Standing up for respect and fairness matters, and even small acts of courage can create waves of change. As the dust settled and the crowd dispersed, Eugene slammed his front door, retreating into the safety of his pristine home. But the events outside were far from over. The videos of his confrontation with Daryl and Snoop Dogg were spreading like wildfire across social media. Within hours, his face and actions were the topic of heated online discussions. The first signs of backlash came from his own neighbors. Linda, the outspoken middle-aged woman, posted one of the videos in the local community group. The caption read, "Enough is enough. This man's behavior doesn't represent our neighborhood." Comments poured in, many condemning Eugene's actions. Neighbors shared their own stories of his arrogance and hostility, particularly toward workers and people of color. One particularly damning comment came from a former landscaper who wrote, "Eugene refused to pay me for work and called the cops when I tried to collect. He's always been like this." Others chimed in, describing years of similar encounters, painting a picture of a man who had alienated nearly everyone around him. Eugene's attempts to deny or justify his actions were futile. The video featuring Snoop Dogg had gone viral, amassing millions of views within hours. News outlets picked up the story, framing it as a clash between privilege and justice. Headlines like, "Snoop Dogg defends delivery driver against racist homeowner," and "Celebrity steps in to stop everyday injustice," dominated social media feeds. Eugene's employer, a prominent local business, quickly issued a public statement. "We are aware of the incident involving Eugene and do not condone discriminatory behavior of any kind. We are conducting an internal review." The fallout didn't stop there. The HOA, Homeowners Association, held an emergency meeting to address the backlash. Eugene had long been a thorn in their side, frequently filing petty complaints and creating unnecessary conflict. Emboldened by the viral attention, the HOA unanimously decided to fine Eugene for behavior unbecoming of a resident, citing his disruption to the neighborhood's reputation. Eugene's isolation grew as more neighbors began to shun him. His once pristine reputation in the community had crumbled under the weight of his actions. Even his closest allies distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the backlash. Inside his home, Eugene sat alone, scrolling through the relentless flood of online comments. Many mocked his arrogance, while others called for broader accountability for people who mistreat workers. His phone buzzed non-stop, not with support, but with messages of disapproval, even from extended family members. Meanwhile, Daryl experienced a different kind of karma. The fundraiser started by a neighbor quickly gained traction, with donations pouring in from strangers who were moved by his composure and resilience. Within days, Daryl had enough funds to repair his van and secure a few months' worth of financial stability. Eugene, on the other hand, couldn't escape the consequences of his actions. His name had become synonymous with entitlement and prejudice, and the more he tried to defend himself, the louder the backlash grew. His story became a cautionary tale. Treating others with disrespect could lead to public humiliation and personal downfall. As the crowd finally dispersed, Daryl leaned against his van, exhaling deeply. The tension of the confrontation with Eugene had left him shaken, but the overwhelming support from neighbors and Snoop Dogg's intervention filled him with a newfound sense of strength. Snoop approached Daryl with his trademark calm confidence, a reassuring smile on his face. "You good, man?" he asked, clapping Daryl on the shoulder. Daryl nodded, his voice steady but full of emotion. "Yeah, I'm good now. I didn't think anyone would stand up for me like that. You didn't have to do what you did, but thank you." Snoop leaned casually against the van, his tone thoughtful yet direct. "Look, man, nobody should have to deal with that kind of nonsense, especially when you're just out here working hard. People like him think they can walk all over folks because nobody checks them. But today, we checked him." Daryl's lips curled into a small smile. "Yeah, we did," Snoop continued, his voice turning into a blend of advice and encouragement. "Remember this, though. Standing up for yourself doesn't always mean throwing hands or starting a fight. Sometimes just staying calm and keeping your head high is enough to show people who you really are." Daryl nodded, his respect for Snoop growing by the second. "I've dealt with folks like Eugene before, but today was different. You stepping in made all the difference. It showed me that people actually care." Snoop grinned. "Always, man. We gotta have each other's backs. That's how we win. Together." As the two men exchanged a final handshake, Daryl felt a renewed sense of pride in his work. He climbed into his van, the weight of Eugene's insults replaced by the strength of the moment. Nearby, a few neighbors lingered, still chatting about the event. Linda approached Snoop, her face full of gratitude. "Thank you for stepping in. You reminded all of us what it means to do the right thing." Snoop waved it off with a modest smile. "It's just about treating folks right. That's the real message." With that, Snoop returned to his SUV, while Daryl drove off, his confidence restored. By the time Daryl reached his next delivery, the encounter with Eugene had already begun making waves online. Videos from the scene, featuring Snoop Dogg stepping in, had been uploaded to social media platforms with captions like, "Snoop Dogg takes down racist homeowner," and "Delivery driver harassed until Snoop Dogg intervenes." Within hours, the videos had gone viral. The clip showing Eugene berating Daryl while Snoop calmly confronted him became the most shared. Onlookers from around the world weighed in, flooding the comments with outrage at Eugene's behavior and admiration for Daryl's composure. "Delivery drivers deal with so much crap every day. Glad Snoop stood up for him," one commenter wrote. Another added, "This is why we need to call out injustice when we see it. Props to Snoop for leading by example." As the video gained traction, major news outlets began covering the story. Headlines ranged from "Snoop Dogg defends delivery driver in viral video" to "Celebrity confronts racism in everyday America." The attention brought an outpouring of support for Daryl. Strangers shared stories of similar experiences, while others started a fundraiser to help him. By the end of the day, the campaign had raised enough money to not only repair his van, but also cover expenses for his family for several months. Daryl was overwhelmed by the kindness pouring in. In an interview with a local news station, he said, "I'm just a guy doing my job. I never expected something like this to happen, but it's incredible to see how many people care, and I can't thank Snoop Dogg enough for what he did." Meanwhile, Eugene's reputation took a sharp nosedive. His name trended on social media, but for all the wrong reasons. Memes of his scowling face juxtaposed with Snoop's calm demeanor flooded the internet. One particularly viral meme read, "Racist homeowner, I've got power. Snoop Dogg, sit down, sir." Eugene's downfall wasn't limited to online ridicule. His employer publicly condemned his actions, releasing a statement that read, "We stand firmly against discrimination and are reviewing this incident closely." Soon after, Eugene was suspended, pending further investigation. The HOA in Eugene's neighborhood also took action, issuing a formal reprimand and fining him for conduct unbecoming of a resident. Neighbors who had long tolerated his condescending attitude began speaking out, recounting their own unpleasant experiences. The story's reach went far beyond Eugene's humiliation. It became a conversation starter about the everyday challenges faced by delivery workers and other frontline employees. Advocacy groups seized the opportunity to highlight the importance of respecting those who provide essential services. Snoop Dogg, however, kept his focus on the bigger picture. In a heartfelt Instagram post, he shared his thoughts on the incident, accompanied by a clip from the viral video. The caption read, "It ain't about being a celebrity, it's about being human. Stand up for people when they need it. Respect is free." The post garnered millions of likes and thousands of comments, with fans and followers praising his actions. Celebrities chimed in as well, sharing the video and applauding Snoop for using his platform to fight injustice. Despite the overwhelming attention, Snoop remained humble. In an interview a few days later, he said, "I didn't do this to go viral or to make a statement. I just saw something wrong and stepped in. That's what anyone should do." The story's impact was undeniable. Conversations about racism and workplace respect surged across social media and beyond. For Daryl, it was a turning point. He became a symbol of resilience, proving that even in the face of disrespect, dignity and hard work can shine through. As the viral video continued to dominate social media, Eugene's life began to unravel. What had started as an outburst on his front porch spiraled into a public relations nightmare. The backlash was swift and relentless, with Eugene's face plastered across countless memes and videos highlighting his behavior. At first, Eugene tried to play the victim. He shared a statement on his personal social media account, claiming he was being unfairly targeted and that the video had been taken out of context. "I was protecting my property," he wrote. "People are so quick to judge without knowing the full story." But Eugene's statement only made things worse. The internet exploded with rebuttals, pointing out his blatant racism and highlighting similar incidents shared by others who had dealt with him. Neighbors came forward with stories of Eugene berating landscapers, service workers, and even children riding their bikes too close to his property. "I've lived next to him for 5 years, one neighbor posted in the local community group. "This isn't new behavior, it's just the first time he's been called out for it." The backlash soon bled into Eugene's professional life. His employer, a prestigious real estate firm, released an official statement. "We strongly condemn the actions of Eugene and are currently investigating the matter. Discrimination has no place in our organization." A week later, Eugene was terminated from his position. The firm's decision was widely praised online, with many applauding the company for taking a stand against his behavior. Things weren't much better for Eugene at home. The HOA imposed a hefty fine for his conduct, citing their rules about maintaining the community's integrity. Some neighbors began to openly avoid him, crossing the street rather than passing his house. Others placed handwritten signs on their lawns reading, "Hate has no home here." Eugene's attempts to salvage his reputation failed. His every move was scrutinized, and he found himself isolated within a neighborhood he once controlled through intimidation. Even his social media accounts were flooded with angry comments and calls for accountability. Meanwhile, the fundraiser for Daryl continued to grow. Donations poured in, not just from locals, but from people across the country who had been touched by his story. Daryl used the funds to repair his delivery van and provide for his family, turning a painful experience into a moment of hope and renewal. Snoop Dogg, reflecting on the events, summarized it best in a follow-up post. "Karma works quick when the world's watching. Treat people right. It's not hard." Eugene's downfall became a cautionary tale. His arrogance and prejudice had not only cost him his career and reputation, but also his place in the community. For the neighbors, the incident was a wake-up call, a moment to reflect on the importance of speaking out against injustice. By the end, Eugene was left with nothing but regret, a harsh reminder that disrespecting others can carry a steep price. For Daryl, the events of that day marked a turning point in his life. What had begun as a routine delivery ended in a whirlwind of support and opportunities he had never imagined. The viral video of Snoop Dogg stepping in to defend him brought a flood of attention, not just to the incident, but to Daryl's perseverance and professionalism. The fundraiser, started by a kind-hearted neighbor, exceeded all expectations, raising more than enough money to repair his aging delivery van. With the additional funds, Daryl was able to clear some overdue bills and provide better opportunities for his young daughter, who had been his motivation through years of hard work. "I'm just a guy doing my job," Daryl said during a local news interview, his voice filled with humility. "But knowing that so many people care and support me, it's a blessing I never saw coming." The attention also brought professional opportunities. A logistics company owner reached out after seeing the story and offered Daryl a higher-paying position with better hours. After careful consideration, Daryl accepted, excited to move forward in his career. Snoop Dogg remained a source of inspiration for Daryl. The two exchanged a few text messages after the incident, with Snoop checking in to ensure Daryl was doing well. "Keep grinding, man," one of Snoop's messages read. "You've got what it takes to make it big." For Daryl's community, the incident sparked a broader conversation about respect for workers and standing up to prejudice. Neighbors who had remained silent about Eugene's behavior now felt empowered to speak up, ensuring that their community became a more inclusive and supportive place. As for Daryl, he carried the lessons of that day with him, not just the pain of the confrontation, but the strength he discovered through the support of others. What could have been a moment of defeat became the foundation for a brighter future. Every time he stepped into his repaired van or looked at his daughter's smile, Daryl was reminded of the power of resilience, community, and the courage it takes to stand tall in the face of adversity. The story of Daryl and Snoop Dogg wasn't just a viral sensation. It became a powerful reminder of the importance of standing up for what's right. It highlighted the everyday struggles faced by hardworking individuals and how a single act of courage can inspire change.